Good morning, everyone. This is Josh at Conquer All Things. I'm joined by Kesh today.
Hey, what's up? How you doing, guys?
This is the first episode of our Warrior Poet Society podcast.
Very exciting.
Very excited about it. So today, we're going to give an intro of ourselves, just so you guys get to know kind of who we are, and then we're going to talk about, the Warrior Poet Society and what it means to us, and go from there. So, I always start with my visual disability. I just always get it out of the way. I was born with a visual disability. As a kid, it made things very complicated, especially as a boy. It was hard to do things that other boys did. Sports was challenging for me, and but I had a dad that was very motivating and very helpful. And the fact that even if I couldn't necessarily play a sport, I had to learn it.
Right.
And so I think for me, masculinity, an example of masculinity growing up was my dad, and watching him push me in a very healthy way. To be able to keep up with other kids, and to know that I was confident enough, if you came up to me on the playground and wanted to play catch, I might not be good at it, but I knew how to play it,
Right.
And so growing up, for me, masculinity has always been that dad figure, and I took it into fitness, into business. I've been looking at my dad, my whole life as an example of masculinity. I think, being a man is complicated. It's challenging,
Yeah.
And the balance between toxic masculinity, just masculinity itself.
Just what it means to be a man, period.
Yeah, what it means, totally. You have to navigate that like your whole life, I feel like.
Yeah. And also I feel like, if I can jump in really quickly, what's really interesting at that age is like when you're a kid, like, for the first 10 years of your life, arguably you listen to your dad, and that's your father figure, if you're lucky enough to have that. But then after 10 or so, then you're on your own. Most of the time you spend time looking up to what is now your friends, or their big brothers or whatever it is. So.
And celebrities and movie stars. Yeah.
Luck of the draw to some extent. It's very interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, so, that's kind of where I come from. I got into bodybuilding as a sport. That's my sport of choice that I enjoy. As I got older, I have kids of my own now. I have a son of my own now. So the theory and the concept of masculinity, what it is to be a man, is very heavy on my mind because my son is 5.
Right.
And the things that I say to him now are imprinted on him now. That young age is so crucial.
And what a fascinating position to be in too, when you are still defining that for yourself and yet have the responsibility to pass that on.
Right. I think that's why this was so exciting for me. When you approached me and we started talking about this and it evolved into this idea, it was perfect because I am dealing with that right now where, saying things to my son, I hear myself and I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? And I have to hey buddy, that's not what I meant. And I have to reframe what I said.
Right.
It just kind of comes out sometimes. So, yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. I'm going to let you take over. Go ahead and give your background.
Yeah. So my name is Kesh. I go by Kesh, but also Kevin. And how did this come about? Well, actually, probably just a little bit of background about myself. I'm originally from a tiny little island called New Caledonia, which is a French island not many people know about. It's right in between Australia and New Zealand. And I'm an actor, have a background in fitness as well as an athlete. I was an American Ninja Warrior contestant. But that's all for the sporty stuff that very conveniently fit into at the time before I became a little more aware of my moves and identity related to masculinity that was just comfortable to hide behind. But I'd like to think that I'm also a lot more than that. And some of the challenges I've had, obviously they're very different than yours, but I've been myself, for example, and I'm sure we'll have more time to talk about all that stuff. I've dealt with chronic pain for a very long time that has to do with the mental side of things. A lot of it related to being a man and clenching and not meeting expectations and all that stuff. So that's been a big part of my journey, which once again, I'm looking forward to expand on a little bit. But that's it. Really, really passionate about sports, about masculinity, and more so just this idea we talked about, you and I, of being, and it sounds so pretentious as you say, but a Renaissance man. Yeah. Meaning that, back in the days you were very much expected to, and I'm feeling it right now as I'm sort of introducing myself. I'm oh, how do I want to come across as a man kind of thing? And it's to go back to the idea of a Renaissance man, it's that's what fascinates me, to not just fit in a box as a man, to be able to be an athlete, into sports, into this and that, but also love poetry.
Yeah.
Also be smart and like, you know, able to talk about your feelings and be able to be emotional and tap into that. And just the ability to confidently showcase that you are more than just one thing as a man, which I think is also what we're trying to achieve here with this podcast. So
yeah, most definitely. I think the part of being a man that is fun to explore is that creative, sensitive side, that artist in you. We all have it in one way or another. You know, when you find the way that you express yourself, whether it's writing, painting, creating something with your hands, you know. Plus that fitness side. Hey, I train, I work hard, I want to be physically capable at all times. And that balancing act, I think for me, it is about balance, I guess. It's trying to find the balance between the two.
Right. But I don't know about you, like the first thing that comes to mind when I hear balance is, and this is definitely a me thing, but I'm thinking maybe people can relate, maybe you can relate. I felt a lot growing up that balance very often equated to average, because in order to balance things, they have to be at an average level. It's almost like, you know, everything has to be at 50-50 so things can remain balanced. And going back to the pressure of like being a man and what that means, very often as a man, I felt like I had to excel at things in order to either stand out or simply be accepted, right? And so this idea of average was really complicated, because once again, like it doesn't mean balance, but that's very much the association that comes to mind, because you realize that like if you do stand out as a man, then you have more opportunities to belong in a weird way. Like it's very complex, I guess.
No, I think you're right though. You know, balance can be looked at that way, and I think it took me a long time to be okay with it, because you know there's so many of the, you know, fuck balance, like go all in on that one thing, bro, like that alpha aggro mentality. And for me, looking at it as an older person now, you know, 37, about to be 38, I look at balance so differently now than I used to, because I to your point, I definitely looked at it that way for a long time too. I have to be the absolute best in this thing, and everything else can fall away. Nothing matters but the championship in the bodybuilding, you know, winning that thing. And now I would much rather focus a little bit in every area, because I just feel that calming presence when I have that, right? And it's trying to find it too is a challenge, because it's still hard. It's imprinted.
Well, I think there's this weird expectation that comes from the idea that as a man, the quality of the man that you are is defined by your accomplishments and not by who you just are inherently.
That's
you know,
for sure true, man.
And so it's complex, because then, you know, like when you're like a little younger, like a teen or like in your 20s, you haven't accomplished shit. I mean, how can you, right? You're still very much trying to find your footing. And so to feel grounded in yourself before you've been able to achieve anything is a very complex idea, I think. And even now, you know, that like, you know, in our own ways, we've accomplished some things, right? Maybe not everything that we want to. There's still, I think there's this awakening that like, kind of like what you were expressing, like, hey, outside of my resume and like all those like bullet points of like my company or this or that, like what's, just like, who am I? Am I okay just outside of that? Like just being on my own by myself, just me, Kevin, me, Josh, you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting too to think about. Yeah, who am I without all of the things that I'm so hyper focused on in my 20s and 30s?
And, you know, and this is probably things that we'll talk about and touch on like a lot during this podcast, but like, you know, Q and mindfulness, Q and meditation, like all those moments of, I think you can only really find the definition and the feeling of that groundedness when you are able to be still, which is so hard when you're constantly chasing the next thing, right?
Yeah, it's almost impossible. It feels like in a day, but it's not.
Yeah.
You can definitely craft time to be still.
I'm curious, now that we're on this topic, what's helped you kind of, or what was the moment like that took you from chasing to all of a sudden, hey, it's actually important for me to also ground a little bit and like not always
Yeah, I think for me it was, having my second kid. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and then E now, who's 5. And when E came along, I was so hyper focused on success. Like, that's all that mattered. I wasn't home a lot. I would take every client I could get as a trainer, any opportunity to meet with somebody about business. And as my family expanded, and I had a son and a daughter now looking up to me as that figure in our house, I realized that really what mattered was at home for me.
Right.
It was our relationships, and it was our times together that I would think of in that still moments when I needed to kind of breathe, because I was overwhelming myself.
Right.
You run yourself into the ground trying to chase success, 18-hour days, 16-hour days, like, oh, we can only sleep for 4 hours. I'm going to work 20 hours straight. Yeah. It's not healthy.
Especially in LA. I feel like it's so glamorized.
Yeah, it is. It's that hustler grind mindset. Yeah. And we see it on Instagram, everywhere. And, for me, I've always wanted to be a parent. And so as my family grew, it was looking at them as the more important thing. Right. And as I looked at them as a more important thing, things started to kind of just fall into place everywhere else too, which was interesting to feel, because I didn't stop working how I worked. I just worked differently. Right. I stopped focusing on the glamour, the cars, the material things that we hyper focus. Yeah, achievements, totally. And I started focusing on, this is going to let me have more time with them, or this gives me opportunity to take them there and do this with them. And then bringing them into my businesses was a big one too. The first couple of businesses that I opened, I kept it very separate. Right. This is my business life. This is my home life. You can't come and see this. My kids are here. My wife is here all the time now in this new business. So it's learning, in those moments what's important, I guess, and still knowing I haven't stopped working. I just work differently. I'm curious,
do you feel like a shift in terms of like that sort of like, I almost want to call it nervous, but maybe that's the wrong term, that energetic buzzing or drive that you would put in so many different things? Like you said, do you feel like now it's got nowhere to go, or do you feel like it's dissipated as you became more grounded?
I think it's dissipated as I've gotten grounded, because I found more comfort in it, in what I'm doing. Right, I feel more comfortable as an entrepreneur or as a business person now than I did before. Even today, I've had several meetings today that are, possibly game changers for my company. Right. And it's just another day for me, because I know that we're going to have a holiday party tonight, and I know that I'm going to see my kids. I know that my friends are going to be around, and I'm looking forward to those moments. And so that energy, that nervous feeling, I used to feel it like stress, like just stressed about everything. I don't feel that ever anymore. Right.
Do you have like little things that help you in moments where you feel that energy kind of like be the driving force again, little things that you can do, whether it's like, hey, let me take 5 breaths here, or like, let me, look at a photo of my kids, or it could be anything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So a couple things. If I get too stressed, grounding, just knowing that I'm here, which I learned in therapy, ground myself, like whether it's tapping my chest or taking that second to close my eyes.
What's that called? I forgot.
My therapist calls it a grounding technique. Okay. It's a grounding technique that you just use to tap to know, like, hey, I'm present in this moment. I'm right here, and we're good. Like, don't overwhelm yourself. And looking at a picture of my kids or a video of my family doing something is definitely another one. I'm big on music too. I love music. So I use that as a lot of, I know what songs remind me of certain memories, certain people. Right. I'll kind of pull that, and then I'll go back into what I'm doing.
Beautiful. Yeah.
What about you?
Breathing has been huge for me, and it's always, even to this day, anytime I talk about breathing, I feel like I'm like, yeah, everybody breathes, like, like, what's the big deal, like, revel, like, it's just, but I really think that kind of like to go back with what we were saying, like, I was for a long time in my life in a spot where I just felt, the irony of saying that as I'm drinking coffee, but I just felt like I was constantly just buzzing without even realizing it, because that becomes your baseline essentially. And so it wasn't until I started doing a little bit more, like, obviously therapy and meditation, mindfulness, all that stuff, and then I found moments that were more still and quiet, that I was like, hey, actually, I think this is baseline, and I'm actually always kind of like with this nervous, jittery kind of energy of like, what's next, what do I need to do, how do I prove myself, this and that. And I just think that, like, now I have this thing where I just this is something you might have come across too. Like Andrew Huberman always talks about, like, you know, the one big inhale, then top it up, and then, you know, slowly exhale through the mouth. I try to take 5 of those.
Okay.
And once I'm done with that, I'm able generally to like notice, oh, okay, my shoulders were really like tense. Like I can relax into that. And I kind of go through a bit of a, if I have the luxury to do that and the room is not too crowded and I can kind of focus, like, okay, how do I actually feel in my body right now, somatically speaking? Like, do I feel like, you know, like maybe there's a little tension, maybe in my brain, it feels like my brain is kind of doing this. I kind of go through a checklist. And I try and visualize the opposite feeling. So maybe, you know, if I feel a little bit like, sometimes I'll picture like tree roots being completely like this because I'm clenching and I'm nervous. Then I'll lean into the breathing as I imagine myself maybe untangling and all that stuff.
Nice.
But that's if I have more time. You know? Otherwise, just literally taking a couple of breaths and reminding myself, hey, I'm in a room, I'm safe. That also just is, it sounds little, but it's a game changer. And it like just allows me to take the next step towards whatever it is that I was doing at the time. Kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the breathing thing with Huberman is, I think, it's helping so many people. And it's funny because you hear, like, do you do your breathing techniques? To your point, like, it does sound funny.
Yeah.
But it's like breathing with intent. Like, it's not the same thing.
Totally. I was listening to this guy. I can't remember his name. He's like a therapist. He's got a really interesting, very niche kind of thing where he's a therapist, but he's also a gamer. And he was talking about the fact that, like, very often when people come to him with like, hey, like, I'm having issues there and, you know, I can't relax, I can't blah, blah, blah. He literally just tells them, go stare at a wall for an hour and just breathe. And I think I might have told you this. I did that one time and it was a terrifying thought because I was like, I don't think I've ever done just staring at a place without a little rectangle phone in my hand or distraction or a book or whatever it is, just by yourself awake, staring at a wall for an hour. Can I even do this? Like, and the terrifying thought that follows is like, what if I can't? What if I can't be by myself on my own with my thoughts for an hour? So I forced myself to do it. And I remember it was a moment of like, hey, like, I can't be having those moments of like, I don't know if I can just be on my own. That's why I think it's so important for us to also like, just kind of bring an awareness to like, hey, like you have to learn to sit still. Like it's so like important. Yeah. I don't know where we were going with this, but
no, I like it. I'm going to try that actually because saying it, I'm thinking of myself sitting in front of a wall and looking at it, and I don't think I can.
Right?
Like
it's
for
crazy.
that long, for an hour. Yeah, I don't know if that's even possible, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
And see.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I'm curious.
But you know what's tough too? Like it makes me think like thinking back on when I did it, I remember too, and I don't know if once again this relates a little bit to the pressure of maybe it's masculinity, maybe it's just a human tendency of like, as I was staring at that wall for an hour, I didn't have my phone nearby, so I didn't know how far in I was, if it was 30 minutes in, 15 minutes, like it all starts to blend in into this weird thing. I was like, well, but what if I don't have a big revelation? What if I don't have like, you know, like a change into the way I see the world?
This isn't a game changer.
Like literally, I was like, and what's the point? And then all of a sudden, once again, you're in the spiral until you can zone in on the breathing. Yeah. But I think the reason why I was mentioning this is that guy that like kind of like put me onto this idea. He talks about the fact that when you do practice meditation, mindfulness regularly, there is something so exhilarating just about the breathing, just about being able to focus. Because I think he was explaining that most people don't realize that what makes people happy often is their ability to focus singularly on one thing in a world where ADHD is more prevalent than it ever has. We're always distracted, short form content, this and that. So anyway, all that to say, the practice of that is something that I'm really like acutely aware of.
Yeah,
now, you know?
No, stillness is great. Something that I've been trying to do more is like gratitude. And I might be late to the game because I know so many people have been talking about it for a long time. I think when you're so hyper focused on what can go wrong and you know, that panic mode, you don't get to think about gratitude. However, I would say for the last 6 to 9 months, like this year has been it was one of my main goals this year was like, hey, you need to focus on gratitude. Right. Shift your inner voice. And that has been a very helpful tool to use in every area of my life, relationships, business. It really allows you to just kind of release stress when you're not looking at the worst case scenario all the time. It's like, no, like people often say, oh, it must be nice. And when I think about gratitude in my head, I'm always thinking like, man, how nice for them. Right. How nice for them. Like, that's great.
What does that look
Nothing to do
like
with
for
me.
you though? Do you do like do you pick 5 things, or do
Yeah,
you journal? Do
so
you...
I used to journal. I just started again. I'm a big journaler. I just
Same.
took some time off,
Same, yeah.
and I have a structure of my journal that I love. I got it from different entrepreneurs and pieced it together. But the first thing is, you write 10 things you were grateful for.
Okay.
Just whatever comes to mind first. It could be one word. I write my kids, my wife.
Yeah.
This gym, different things. And then the next one is 3 things you're specifically grateful for in the last 24 hours.
Okay.
So it really keeps you in that 24-hour moment. So,
Right.
one of the things could be this. Hey, sitting down with Kesh and talking to him, doing that first podcast.
Yeah,
I'm really
yeah.
grateful we got to do that and that we've met each other.
Cool.
And that keeps me in the moment.
Right.
And then, because I do have the entrepreneurial side where I am very business focused, one of the tools that I got from, I think it was Andy Frisella, it was writing down a goal that I want to attain 25 times.
Okay.
And whatever it is, it's right now I'm trying to gain 30 pounds because I got to compete.
Yeah.
So just, I will gain 30 pounds and I'll write it 25 times.
Yeah.
And then that power list at the bottom for the day. What are the 5 things I need to get done? What are the 5 things today I need to get done just in business or in my personal life? And usually a quote, and I journal on the quote. I'll write a quote that I heard, or if you've texted me something, I'll write that quote down and kind of just journal on the page, and that's my 2-page journal for the morning.
Nice.
The gratitude one has been the most surprising.
Right.
Especially the in 24 hours.
Right.
Like really taking a second to look back and be like, man, what am I grateful for in the last 24 hours specifically?
Right.
It really just lets you take like inventory.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember. There was a study that I read a bunch of times. I always come across it that says that like technically when you feel the feeling of feeling grateful, you can't feel anything else at the same time.
Yeah.
So like whether you felt like depressed or anxious or like stressed, whilst you're in that mode of feeling grateful and doing the inventory, like you said, that keeps your brain in that state, which is probably very like calming. It's
very calming, and then it allows you when you're looking at that goal, whatever the goal is for you at that time, to really appreciate what it is, whatever it is for you.
Right.
Because it's not really about achieving the goal. It's about the journey to the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like it's about what I'm going to do and what it takes to reach something difficult.
Right.
And because you do those 10 things, which are usually your friends and family, just little things, and you knock out, man, in the last 24 hours, when you look at that goal, I think it makes it feel more attainable because of the gratitude that you put before it. Because you're thinking about it now in the frame of, man, I get to do this with these amazing people.
Yeah,
these amazing
that shift,
things.
I don't have to, I get to.
I get
That's
to.
huge.
Exactly. And I think that structure is what I love. And then that power list at the bottom. Okay, what are the 5 things I need to do? It all sort of flows through. So by the time you get to that 5 things, you're not really stressed about what the 5 things are in the same way you might be if you just wrote down, man, I have to do these 5 or 10 things today.
Yeah.
You kind of get yourself into the gratitude, get yourself the goal, and it's like, okay, now what do I need to do?
Yeah, and I think I love that you do that too, because like I love the concept and the idea that it's a practice, and through that practice you actually cultivate, whether you realize it or not, like that stillness of like learning how to spend time with yourself and sit comfortably and develop that relationship with yourself, that like it's so easy to forget about that and to never like worry about it, because like it becomes really like complex in terms of ideas. I guess it's like the whole like, Eckhart Tolle power of now. It's like, wait, but this is me, but so I don't need to care or worry about me because I'm me all the time. And it's like this whole like confusing like but it's that relationship with yourself is something that does need cultivating very intentionally, and doing something like that, I think, goes back to a quote that you and I have talked about, which is the Jocko Willink thing of like discipline equals freedom.
Yep.
Once you have those practices throughout your day that allow you to just, maybe bookend your day, even you do that in the beginning or at the end of your night, then in between, anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't stop you from that, but at least you have that sort of like container where you're like, hey, I got my own back. I've done stuff for me today. Now let the world, take me and go wherever. But I think it's a game changer.
I think what's nice too is I added the practice in later of the quote, and it goes back to the warrior poet concept, because if you look at my social media or kind of follow me or know me, I'm pretty intense in the gym. I love the gym. I train really hard. It's my favorite thing to do. It's my main hobby is working out really hard in any way too. Any new modality or any new thing someone wants to do physically, I love it. Yeah. But I want nothing more than to be a writer. Right. Like that's been my passion and my goal since I was in the 3rd grade. Bonnie Becken was my 3rd grade teacher. I'll never forget her because she introduced reading to me and
Shout
writing.
out Bonnie. Okay.
Yeah, dude, she was the best. I read every book in her library in the 3rd grade. I think it was like 100 books. Cool. And now when I'm in that stillness and in that journaling, I added a quote. And a lot of my friends know I love quotes. So I get texts all the time from people. Hey, like here's another quote for you. And I'll write it in the journal and I hand write it in. So I write it, which makes me feel more attached to it. Yeah. And then I get to just spread out and say whatever I want or whatever it invokes in me. And that freedom in that journal is that poet side. Yeah. And I love that vulnerability to be able to kind of just put what I need to put on paper in the morning. No one's awake but me, usually in my house. And you get to explore your thoughts, right? Like in that quiet moment.
Yeah, I think there's a duality in there, right? Like there's a part of my brain that's almost like, what does that look like when we break down the name of this podcast, as we also like now are starting to like find it more. It's a really cool concept that, well, maybe we should give credit to Aubrey Marcus, who we both listen to a lot. And I think that there's a part of my brain that goes to, well, the warrior is the man side and the poet is the feminine side. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something in there, but yet my brain is also a little bothered because I'm like, well, why can't the poet side be the masculine side? Mm-hmm. And I think that even in myself, as I'm trying to explain this and be healthy about this whole thing, like there's a tendency, right, of wanting to like fit some boxes and like figure out how that works. But I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the idea with this whole podcast and concept of the warrior poet is that they blend in together. Mm-hmm. They're not separate things. They're really just one thing. Yeah,
and it's learning to be comfortable with that. Yeah, that's the challenge. And what's cool is we're both going through it. And I think that will be fun because so many people are. Yeah. It's just we're not talking about it. You and I luckily met each other and found that common ground right away. Right. You know, and now exploring it further is going to be a blast.
Yeah, I know. I'm really, really excited. It's interesting because like, even though like, as we discussed, there's I think more of a shift now in the culture in terms of like people talking more about the emotional side of masculinity, what that looks like, what it means to be a man, all that stuff. There is still a little bit of apprehension, right? Like when you talk to another dude, especially like if it's in the setup of like a gym or something like that, there is a bit of like a, hey dude, like, yeah, totally, but like also like feelings, and like there's always that little moment of like, you know, like, are they going to respond to that, or are they just going to call me like a wimp or whatever? And it's such a weird thing, and I think that to be able to really dismantle that and just like start being more confident into the fact that like, hey, I will talk about the things that I want to talk about, whether it's with you, big broy, Joey, whatever your name is, or like a girl or whatever it is, or my mom, and I'm going to be okay with that because that's me, and that's the warrior poet thing.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, you know, doing it is a fun challenge too, because we got to live it, right? So I think my friends are noticing it more. Like I'm checking in on my friends a lot more. Like my guy friends especially, like, hey, how are you? Like, how are you feeling? Are you good? Right. And like I'm pushing it because I also want to be able to kind of let out a little of myself too, like you know, pulling it out of you so I can also, because we need it. It's a fun thing to watch the reactions of people be like, I'm
asking?
I'm okay, I guess. It's like, great. Like, how are you feeling?
But you know what's crazy is like very often people actually are surprised, not just because you're genuinely asking, but because they don't even ask themselves. How am I doing? You know what I mean? You're just on autopilot. That's it.
No, it's true. Yeah, I think it's a fun challenge. The next time you see one of your friends, just ask them genuinely how they're doing and wait for their reaction.
I love that.
What they say.
Don't take it too far, though. Don't be that guy that's like, no, how are you? Tell me everything.
Me right now. Don't get toxic.
But I love that. Is that a good note to end it on? Almost like
I think we're good for now. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna look at a wall for sure for an hour.
That's
and then we're gonna report how that goes.
That's it. And I'm gonna ask someone, how are you?
Yeah, and mean it.
Stare deeply in their eye. That's it.
There we go. Perfect. All right, Kesh, Josh, follow us online across all social media, and we'll be back again next week. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.
That's it. See you guys soon.